Hi guys, my name is Stacie and today I am doing a young adult fantasy book talk for a class I am taking. Do you ever feel the need to escape reality? Well, fantasy fiction is a way to do that. It's a way for us to escape from it all. Today I will tell you about 5 books and give you a small book talk on each one. So let's get to it. The first of my 5 books is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. um, this is fantasy fiction. Do you love fairy tales where a girl finds her prince and her happily ever after? Well, then, this is probably not the book for you. Think of a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but way darker. Fair is the main character, and she has to support her family after their mother dies. When she shoots a wolf in the woods, a wolf fairy named Tamlin comes and wants payment from her. Fair chooses to go live with him in the fairy realm instead of being killed. Here is an excerpt from the book, from chapter 6. The estate sprawled across a rolling green land. I'd never seen anything like it. Even our former manor couldn't compare. It was veiled in roses and ivy, with patios and balconies and staircases sprouting from its alabaster sides. The grounds were encased by woods, but stretched so far that I could barely see the distant line of the forest. So much color, so much sunlight and movement and texture. I could hardly drink it in fast enough. To paint it would be useless, would never do it justice. My awe might have subdued my fear had the place not been so wholly empty and silent. Even the garden through which we walked, following a gravel path to the main doors of the house, seemed hushed and sleeping. Above the array of amethyst irises and pale snowdrops and butter yellow daffodils, swaying in the balmy breeze, the faint stench of metal tickled my nostrils. Of course it would be magic, because it was spring here. What wretched power did they possess to make their lands so different from ours, to control the weather and the seasons as if they owned them? Sweat trickled down my spine as my layers of clothes turned suffocating. I rotated my wrist and shifted in the saddle. Whatever bonds had held me were gone. The fairy meandered on ahead, leaping nimbly up the grand marble staircase that led to the giant oak doors in one mighty fluid movement. The doors swung open for him on silent hinges, and he prowled inside. He'd planned this entire arrival, no doubt, keeping me unconscious so I didn't know where I was, didn't know the way home, or what other deadly fairy territories might be lurking between me and the wall. I felt for my knife, but found only layers of frayed clothes. The thought of those claws pawing through my cloak to find my knife made my mouth go dry. I shoved away the fury in terror and disgust as my horse came to a stop of her own, accord at the foot of the stairs. The message was clear enough. The towering estate house seemed to be watching and waiting. And then I have one other quote just to show you how dark these fairies can be. There are certain fairies in Prythian who inspired the legends that you humans are so afraid of. Some, like that one, are myth given flesh. Inside that hissing voice, I'd heard the screaming of human victims, the pleading of young maidens whose chest had been split open on sacrificial altars. If you are looking for a dark fairy tale where you may or may not get a happy ending, pick up A Court of Thrones and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And now, moving to the second book. The second book is Red Queen. Are you looking for a royal family, forbidden love, and possibly a revolution? Then this book, Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, is the book for you. Think Game of Thrones. Mare, our main character, lives in a cruel world, a world divided by the color of your blood. Red bloods, which include our main character Mare, are the peasants. Silver bloods are the royalty. The catch? Mare is a red blood, but unlike any other reds, she has special powers that only the silver bloods have. Mare is taken into the Silver Castle as a servant, and that is when the revolution begins. I will read an excerpt to you from chapter 16. When Mare gets into the castle. After a week of staring at my clock waiting for midnight, I begin to despair. Of course Farley can't reach us here. Even she is not so talented. But tonight when the clock ticks, I feel nothing for the first time since Queen's trial. No cameras, no electricity, nothing. The power is completely out. I've been in blackouts before, too many to count, but this is different. This isn't an accident. This is for me. Moving quickly, I slip into my boots, now broken in by the weeks of wear, and head for the door. I'm barely out in the hallway before I hear Walsh in my ear, speaking softly and quickly as she pulls me through the forced darkness. We don't have much time, she murmurs, hustling me into a service stairwell. It's pitch black, but she knows where we're going, and I trust her to get me there. They'll have the power back on in 15 minutes if we're lucky. And if we aren't, I breathe in the darkness. She hustles me down the stairs and shoulders open a door. Then I hope you're not too attached to your head. And then I have one more that I would like to read to you, one more excerpt. He taught me about death, the before, the wars. But beyond that, in a time when things could still change, there were revolutions. The people rose, the empires fell, and things changed. Liberty moved in arcs, rising and falling with the tide of time. Revolution needs a spark, I murmur, repeating what Julian would say in our lessons, and even sparks burn. As a Game of Thrones fan, this book was an exciting read for me. It had all of the elements that keep me entertained in a young adult fantasy book. You should go out and get Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Our third book. This was an exciting one. Sibling rivalry is normal, right? Especially between sisters? I'd say yes. But sibling rivalry is taken to a whole new level in this book. 3 Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. I don't want to give this book away at all to you, so I'm going to read a little bit inside the front cover. In every generation on the island of Finburn, a set of triplets is born. 3 queens, all equal heirs to the crown, and each possessor of a coveted magic. The next part, I will tell you about the 3 queens, the main characters, and the special powers. Our first queen is Catherine. and she is the poisoner. The Gabe Noir. Sometimes it is called the Black Glut. It is a ritual feast of poison performed by poisoner queens at nearly every high festival. And so, weak gift or not, Catherine must perform it well. She must hold the poison down past the last bite until she is shut safely in her rooms. None of the visiting poisoners can be allowed to see what comes after: the sweat and the seizures and the blood. The second queen sister. She is Arsinoe, and she is the naturalist queen. Such a task should be easy for any naturalist. It should be especially easy for a queen. Arsinoe ought to be able to bloom entire bushes and ripen whole fields, but her gift has not come. Because of that weakness, no one expects Arsinoe to survive the Ascension year. But Jules will not give up, not even if it is the Queen's 16th birthday. And we will stop there for Arsinoe. And our last queen is Mirabella, and she is an elemental queen. Mirabella reaches down deep, calling silently to the goddess, giving thanks for her gift. But that is only temple teaching. Mirabella needs no prayers. Her elemental gift coils in her chest. She takes a breath and lets it go. A shockwave passes under their feet. It rattles the temple and everyone in it. The 3 triplets are born. They are separated when they are 6 years old and raised in different areas of the kingdom. And then when they are 16 years old, they have to use their magic and fight to the death. And there is only one queen surviving. And I will leave you with the back cover. 3 dark queens are born in a glen. Sweet little triplets will never be friends. 3 dark sisters, all fair to be seen. 2 to devour and 1 to be queen. That is 3 Dark Queen Crowns by Kildare Blake. The next book I will be talking about is The Hazelwood. This is a fantasy book by Melissa Albert. It is a fairy tale, and there are actually 2 other fairy tales in the book. 17-year-old Alice is our main character, and Alice's grandmother Althea, who wrote dark fairy tales in her estate called The Hazelwood, dies. Then Alice's mother disappears, and the only clue that she leaves for Alice says, "Stay away from the Hazelwood." What does Alice do? You guessed it. She doesn't stay away. Melissa Albert's language in writing this book is beautiful. I'll read an excerpt from chapter 22. It chilled me to my marrow. Life never turns out how you imagine it will when you're young. Everything is smaller than you think or too big. It all smells a little funny and fits like somebody else's shirt. But this version of the Hazelwood was perfect. It was mine. It was being pulled from me, from daydreams I thumbed over so often that they were creased, and the preserved pages of the Vanity Fair. I closed my eyes and opened them again slowly, half expecting to see a tumble-down ruin, the truth behind the fantasy, but my vision held up. And I am going to stop right here. This is The Hazelwood. It's a dark and dangerous fairy tale written by Melissa Albert. And I have saved, in my opinion, the best for last. This book is The Haunting of Sunshine Girl. My 12-year-old daughter heard about this at school last year, so I went out and bought it so she and I could read it together. The author is Paige McKenzie. She is actually, she was 16 years old when she had the idea for the book, and the book was actually published when she was 19 years old. This is a paranormal fiction book. The main character is Sunshine Griffith. She and her mother moved from Texas to Washington State. And from the minute they enter their new home, Sunshine can feel that something is not right. Several parts of this novel actually gave me the chills, and I will read a part from chapter 6 called Night Terrors. Where did that come from? I asked, looking up. We're on the first floor. Even if the roof is leaking, we shouldn't be able to feel it down here. I pull my phone from my pocket and shine its flashlight on the ceiling. Mom, I ask, did you leave the water on upstairs or something? Mom looks up and gasps. The ceiling above us is soaking wet, drops of water beating across the cream-colored paint and falling to the floor. Did you take a shower when you got home from school? We're directly below the bathroom. Maybe you left the water running. I shake my head. I haven't even been on the second floor since she got home. I didn't want to see the checkerboard waiting for me. Then I hear it. A sound coming from above. Mom, I whisper urgently, but she's frozen in place. Mom, I repeat, but she shakes her head, her hair brushing my face as she moves her head back and forth. Do you hear that? She whispers, and I nod. It's the most terrible sound I've ever heard. Not laughter, not night-night, not the sound of my things being arranged in the room above us, not even the sound of water running. Instead, it's the sound of crying, but it's like no crying I've ever heard. She's not crying, I realize with a start. She's begging, and suddenly she screams. I am going to stop right there. If there was a creepy scale from 1 to 10, I would probably give The Haunting of Sunshine Girl by Paige McKenzie a solid 9. And as you can see from the book, even my dog liked it. This is the end of my fantasy book talk. I hope some of the titles I've talked about have grabbed your attention and that you might go out and get them. Thanks.